Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming. Today's press conference, I'll say from the start, is not about Warwickshire Police. It's not about Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service, and it's not about the Crown Prosecution Service. Today is about the firefighters who died and lost their lives. And I was asked by family members to arrange an opportunity for them to speak with yourselves. And that's why we're here today. So if we can make that clear from the outset. However, before we begin, and before we commence with that, there are, or have been, I think, a couple of inaccuracies that have been mentioned over the last 24 hours or so. So I'd like really just to put those straight and put some clarification around that. Some have said there should never have been an investigation. I think it should be clear to everybody why the police service exists. We have a legal duty to investigate every death in whatever circumstances. 4 firefighters lost their lives at work. They turned out one evening during the course of a job that they love to do. And as a consequence, as a direct consequence, they lost their lives. So I would pose that question. How can anyone suggest that that doesn't warrant an investigation? Directly as a result of that investigation, Warwickshire County Council has pleaded guilty to a very serious health and safety offence. They have also acknowledged that lessons need to be learned from the events of the 2nd of November 2007. In essence, I have led 2 investigations. Both have been conducted with equal professionalism and in order to find the truth. And that's what those investigations are all about. It's to establish the truth of what took place. One investigation was into the cause of the fire itself. And if, as we believe, it was probably arson, who, if that was the case, was responsible for that? That investigation has been exhaustive, but has not to date resulted in any charges. I say to date because any such investigation is never closed. And as information comes in, which it does from time to time, then we continue to further investigate that. So that is not a complete investigation as yet, and never will be until we can possibly find out some sort of conclusion or any possible lead to follow dries up. The second investigation looked at the decisions made on the night by those with a responsibility for the care of others under their command. It looked at the fire authority's responsibility for the fire service as a whole as well. Some commentators have criticised Warwickshire Police for the prosecution of incident commanders. I'd like to remind everybody that the police doesn't actually prosecute anybody. The police investigate the circumstances of any situation, allegation or suspicion of a crime. It's obviously the responsibility of the Crown Prosecution Service once the conclusions attained by that investigation are presented to them. And it is the Crown Prosecution Service who actually prosecute. But they do so on the evidence resulting from our investigation. Clearly, moving on from that, it's the responsibility of a jury, guided by a judge, to consider the evidence and reach a verdict. That is our justice system, of course, and that's exactly what's happened in this case. There has been a thorough and protracted investigation. The evidence has been presented to the Crown Prosecution Service. The Crown Prosecution Service deemed, on the basis of that evidence, that charges and a prosecution was appropriate, and it was placed before a court and a jury. And that's exactly what has happened. The CPS have publicly explained why the prosecution was warranted, and why it was in the public interest to pursue that. And I don't intend to reopen that debate or speak on their behalf. I also don't intend to speak on behalf of the Health and Safety Executive. As you know, the Health and Safety Executive worked very closely as part of my investigation, and there are some areas within that investigation which fall to their areas of responsibility and their expertise, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to delve into the detail of that today. So that having been said, I would like to get to the purpose really of today's conference. And first of all, I'd like to invite to come and sit beside me Julie and Sophie Reid, who are Ian Reid's wife and daughter.
I'm devastated that the jury returned a not guilty verdict in court, but realise that I have to accept their decision. The three original defendants were portrayed as experienced firefighters and incident commanders, and their crews defended them as so. If their crews were so confident in their abilities as incident commanders and were so confident of the decisions made on that fateful night, why then did those firefighters not have the courage of their convictions to tell it like it was that night when questioned by police or when taking the witness stand? Why would they not want to tell the truth about that night, and why would the three defendants not want to give their accounts? Yes, they had a legal right to say nothing, but where were the qualities of the firefighter, the courage, the integrity? The incident commanders and Warwickshire firefighters should hang their heads in shame. All I ever wanted was to know what happened that night and have questions answered, but I don't feel that has happened. I need to understand why successive BA crews entered the building but gained nothing. They were no nearer to tackling or indeed finding the fire due to the excessive heat and smoke to floor level, which was evident in the fire compartment after the first BA crew entered the building. What did they gain or find out from the second, third, the fateful fourth BA crew and the fifth BA crew entries that they didn't have from the first entry? Why could they not see that they were achieving nothing, and that until the conditions were improved in the fire compartment, they would never be able to tackle this fire offensively? The three defendants have admitted that they made mistakes on the 2nd of November. Warwickshire Fire and Rescue personnel must know that mistakes were made on that night. The FBU must know that mistakes were made on that night. I believe that whilst all three defendants were experienced firefighters, I do not believe that they were sufficiently experienced as incident commanders, and certainly did not possess the ability to look at the wider picture. They lacked the experience to say, withdraw BA crews, let's reassess, revisit the information provided to us and rethink our strategy. In firefighting terms, Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service is Sleepy Hollow, and whatever the logistical difficulties, I would like to see a programme of exchanges for incident commanders to larger brigades in order that they may receive a broader spectrum of incidents. Over the past year, I have witnessed disgraceful behaviour from some Warwickshire firefighters, and that is from the top down. And as to the recent talk from senior figures in Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service that firefighters should be able to go about their work without fear of prosecution, I say this. We are all accountable for our actions, even the police. No one is above the law. We have a legal process in this country, and if the police suspect a crime has been committed, they are duty-bound to investigate and pass their findings to the CPS. The legal process will determine whether charges should be brought, not the profession of an individual. The jury could not find guilt in this case, but if this case makes incident commanders take 1 extra minute to assess the situation presented when arriving at an incident, then that can only be for the good. A firefighter's life is not worth less than that of the member of the public, and it is most certainly not worth a pallet of packing material. I do acknowledge that the defendants and their families have had a difficult year with this hanging over their heads, but it is nothing compared to the heartache Sophie and I have suffered for 4.5 years. I lost my husband, who I love very much, and Sophie lost a dad she adored. Our heartache and loss is permanent. Why does Warwickshire Chief Fire Officer Smith think that this case should not have gone to court? Does he not think that where the evidence is there, action should be taken? Is he really that arrogant and small-minded to think that firefighters are above the law? Ian had been a retained firefighter for over 4 years and a whole-time firefighter for 3 weeks. It was a job he loved, and it saddens me that the men Ian respected are the very same men that let him down. Thank you.
Investigating the cause of why 4 firefighters died at Atherstone-on-Stour when they were committed wearing BA when the fire had been burning for at least an hour and a half, and conditions had been unbearably hot and visibility non-existent, would always be difficult. 30 firefighters have died at work in the first decade of the 21st century. The FBU have been campaigning for the government to investigate these deaths, but in this investigation they sought to control what information would be made available to the police, such as where, when and how this information could be gained. With regards to this court case, the prosecution of the 3 fire managers, most or all of the evidence could only be gained if the firefighters present on the night were to take the stand to give their account of how and why these tragic events unfolded. Unfortunately, despite the availability of their statements made from November 2007, the majority of these firefighters were unable to remember much of the events that happened during the first 2 hours of the fire, despite losing 4 firefighters, albeit retained firefighters. The 3 accused would not take to the witness stand. Back in 2008, 2 of the accused managers simply refused to make a statement, and their only response to questioning by police was no comment, no comment, no comment. The FBU seemed to have bent over backwards to provide support to the accused, yet they had virtually no contact and provided very little, if any, support to the bereaved families. The same can be said of the fire service since the commencement of legal proceedings. The bereaved families have been treated with contempt, as if it was them who instigated these proceedings, not our country's very own legal system. All we ever wanted were answers to questions, but as the firefighters gave evidence, the answers we had previously been given and seen in witness statements became completely unclear. It could almost be called a cover-up to get the 3 off the charges. In relation to how the fire started, the person or persons that started the fire are guilty of arson. Despite the police taking hundreds of statements from workers, there was no conclusive evidence as to who started the fire. The act was not witnessed, so unless the arsonist comes forward, the case remains open, as it often does in such cases. The previous November, Darren was part of a 2-man BA crew that went into a burning house to rescue an occupant, despite flames coming through the roof. They pulled the occupant out, but unfortunately he was dead. Atherstone fire would have been one of Ashley Stevens' first BA wares since becoming competent. I often question in my mind the wisdom in sending him into such a dangerous incident when there were more experienced crew on Ulster's fire engine. Ashley Stevens' father recently appeared on television saying he warned his son of the conditions were very hot. Yet he and the members of crew Red 1 were still sent into the fire. It was obvious that within 20 minutes that the 2 incident commanders lost not only 4 firefighters, but the building because of incompetent and ill-judged firefighting techniques with no regard for human life. Early in the evening, before the men were sent in, it was established that there was no O2 card or action plan were available concerning this particular building. Therefore, they should have started firefighting with the utmost caution and seriousness. After 1.5 hours of the fire burning unchecked, it would have been foolish and dangerous to assume that the fire was still confined to one pallet of cardboard. The amount of heat generated to melt electric cables from the seat of the fire and the amount of dense smoke to fill the huge fire compartment from roof to floor, it must have been obvious that the fire had spread to many of the other 14 or so pallets, many containing plastic wrapping materials. Experts estimate that the temperature would have been over 600 degrees in parts of the fire compartment. The campaign mounted by the family and colleagues of the three defendants was one-sided and particularly offensive in rather personal attacks on members of the prosecution team. The bereaved families still hold the fire managers responsible for the loss of their loved ones, despite the jury finding them not guilty. Some things have changed since the fire. Firefighters have better hot fire training, better breathing apparatus, and they now have to use larger 52mm hoses to fight large fire compartments.
My life has completely changed since the death of Darren. We'd only been married for 3 weeks and 6 days with hopes and dreams for our future. All of this was destroyed on the 2nd of November. I lost everything and gained nothing. And all Darren wanted was to be a full-time firefighter like his father. It makes me wonder now if he would have continued this path after the way his death has been treated and dealt with, and the lack of support from his brother-in-arms. Darren died doing something that he loved but lost his life for nothing. A family destroyed for what? A single pallet fire. The fire service has a famous quote, "We're sorry, but this has never happened before." This was said to me so often it turned out to be a joke. And as an insult, as it was quoted mainly regarding family welfare issues. I do hope in the future that the fire service and the FBU do actually become less arrogant. It will learn how to deal with bereaved families in a more professional and caring manner. It is too late for me, but may well be of use to other families who may have to deal with this in the future. I once had a meeting with Graham Smith, who said he would be disappointed if he learnt that these 3 firefighters had not recognised it was a sandwich panel building. I would like to ask him how he feels about that now. My tribute to Darren is that he was a bubbly, popular and professional person with good character and wanted nothing more than to have a happy family life doing a job he loved. I hope the fire service actually take note and learn lessons so this will never happen again, as I will always have unanswered questions.
My life will never be the same again. I lost my boy, Darren Yates-Badley, on November the 2nd, 2007. He was doing the job he loved. All he ever wanted to be was a firefighter. He wanted to follow in his father's footsteps, Stephen Baylis, who is a fireman at Ulster Fire Station with 20 years' experience. That night will haunt me forever. I never thought I would feel so let down by the fire service. They have talked about brother-in-arms, one big family. This is not true in our case. Family and friends of Ulster Fire Station, which have been part of our lives for 25 years, have crossed the street rather than speak to us. It's as if we've done something wrong. All we did was to lose Darren in the most impossible way, not to be able to say goodbye. He didn't deserve that. When this happened, the FBU and Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service said they would help us. This was not to be. I had a fire liaison officer appointed to me. I bared my soul to him, and then they took him away and replaced him with another. How could I go through that again? Impossible. The FBU haven't helped us in any way. Only today, the 29th of May 2012, have we been appointed a member of the FBU to turn up to look after us, and that was when the jury was sent out. Darren has a wife named Fay and a lovely daughter, 8, called India. Darren has a loving sister, Emma, and we will love and miss him forever.
I read this statement on behalf of Paul, Sharon, Kerry and Sean Stevens.
On the 15th of June 1987, gave us new light in our lives with the birth of our son Ashley. On the 2nd of November 2007, that light was turned off when Ashley died, fighting a warehouse fire at Atherstone-on-Stour. The last 4 years for us as a family have been just too difficult and emotional to describe. As his father, and at the time a serving firefighter, being present at the incident and having witnessed the horrendous scene on that night has left me with images that will stay with me forever. Images so strong I have not been able to attend the court hearing. The loss of Ashley has left such a hole in our hearts that it is impossible to mend. Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service gave us unlimited support up until the charges were brought against 3 of their officers. After that, it seemed we were on the wrong side of support, and support dwindled down to nothing. To hear the chief fire officer speak to the press saying their thoughts were with the families was very hypocritical, as the only family support shown has been to the defendants' families. Ashley loved being part of the fire service and wanted to become a full-time firefighter. It seems so unjust that the full-time officers he would have looked up to have let him down so badly. We would like to thank the police liaison officers for their support throughout the case and the constant updates from court during the trial, and also the support of our local town over the last 4 years.
My name is Emma Crocker and I'm the mother of Ashley Stephen's son, now 4 years old. At the time of the fire at Atherstone-on-Stour in November 2007, Ashley and I were engaged to be married. Our son George was 3 months old and we had our whole life together to look forward to. Ashley was the love of my life and we'd been together since I was 14 years old. I loved him so much and we had so many plans and he was taken from me. Trying to cope with mine and Ashley's son when he was killed was so hard. Throughout the past 4.5 years, George has had no dad, and as he has got older, I have been distraught when he has asked questions like, "Where is my daddy and when is he coming home?" It breaks my heart telling him that his daddy will never come home. He will never meet him and he has no memory of him. Me and my family have all tried to keep strong for all of this time. But going to court and seeing those men that sent my man in to die takes me back to that night, the night I found out that he had been killed. Seeing my little boy growing up on my own is horrible, and I know Ashley would be so proud of him, but he will never see him. Those men sent Ashley, Darren, Ian and John in to die. They sent them into a fire that they should never have gone into. It was too hot, too far away from the entrance, and they didn't have enough information about what they were dealing with. The boys that went in because they were following orders, wrong orders. These men will always be guilty in my eyes. They were at fault on the night, and all I wanted was for the defendants and Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service to hold their hands up and admit their mistakes, and so that people could learn from it. I just don't want anything like this to ever happen again. But that has been said before, e.g. Bethnal Green, and look, it has happened to us. I would not wish this on my worst enemy, the heartache and the suffering. Warwickshire Police have helped me so much and supported us every step of the way, and have got us some of the answers we need. Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service haven't supported me personally in any way, shape or form, and the FBU are disgusting. Not once during the trial have any one of them said anything to us or given us support. The same goes for the supporters groups. They all say that their thoughts are with the families, and none of them have said anything. We see the chief as well at court, and he has said nothing, not even hello. My relationships with firefighters who Ashley worked with are non-existent. Me and my family don't expect to be tiptoed around or anything, but I walk down the street and some cross the road so they don't have to say anything. When we had George christened, he had 20 godparents, of which 80% were firefighters and their wives, few of which now say hello or even ask George if he's okay. This is because the defendants have been taken to court, and they have been taken to court because there is overwhelming evidence that they did wrong on the 2nd of November 2007, but people refuse to accept this. The fire service was once my family, and it's all fizzled out now. I understand people have to move on, but I never can. I would like to think that the investigation will help the fire service, but I don't think they want to know. They are ignorant to their mistakes. I have fully supported the police investigation because without it, we wouldn't have got the answers we so desperately needed. I just wish the defendants could have been more honest. If they had any loyalty to my Ashley and his dead colleagues, they would have told the truth. They have damaged my life forever and damaged my little boy's life forever.